Welcome back to the shop. Been playing in the garage here for, I don't know, it's been a couple weeks. And the last video was getting the Alice running, which is actually kind of fun to mow the yard with. And now I'm out of grass to mow. But I've been playing with the rotary car. I do have a supercharger on it. It's going to come back off probably end of this week. Just to check everything out. There is an autocross on Sunday that I'd kind of like to go to. It's the last of the year. So I'll probably put the factory carburetor back on that and then just verify everything's good with that. But right now it has the Chevelle carburetor on it, which is too big and I really don't want to tune. I don't want to touch that, change jets, nothing on that carburetor because the Chevelle ran so good there a few weeks ago at the Buckeye Skips Drag and Drive. So Rob has a carb, I'm gonna buy off him. I want to say his is a 650 double pumper. I don't remember if it's mechanical or secondaries, vacuum secondaries, but got it running. I got a couple vacuum ports I got to hook up. But today's video, I did watch Finnegan's Garage. Usually I don't ever tend to tell anybody what to do or anything like that, so this is just suggestion coming from my head. But if everybody, I'm sure everybody saw Hot Rod Drag Week, he wheelied up pretty good. Amazing car, Blasphemy is the car I'm talking about. But he ended up, it was a gasser, straight axle gasser, and he converted over to independent front suspension, which that's a lot of controversy because gassers are always straight axle front, which they're not. But so I'm completely with them. The 55 Chevys were independent front, so make an independent front. But what happened was he wheelied up pretty good, and this is just from some of the videos that I've watched. He bent front suspension and all of that stuff. So I started thinking, I was like, I kind of dealt with this stuff before on the cheap, but my four-wheeler, I have 400EX here, and I got it up on the lift, which, don't touch it right now. But I kind of did what I'm thinking might help him. And again, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but again, thinking, where he's got shocks mounted, bump stops and all that on the A-arms, I think he can actually take some weight out of it and improve shock geometry. And I kind of want to make a video just to stir up some conversation and see what other people's opinions are. But we'll go over the four-wheeler. I got a piece of cardboard and we'll draw things out. But I'm thinking, I have no dimensions, no weights, no confirmed numbers, nothing like that. I'm just going off this video, which I'll share down in the description down below. But he has what appears to be the shocks mounted in the middle of the lower control arms, which, let's flip this around. And then I'll talk from behind the camera. So you have a pivot point on the lower control arm. His shocks were mounted about the center. And then you have ball joint, but all of that. But actually, force-wise, and this is my engineering school stuff, I don't know, it might be useful someday. You have a pivot point here, and your weight is actually the center of that wheel. So, let's see if I can do this at farther distance. Again, pivot point, center of the wheel, that's where the weight of the vehicle is. So if your shock is in the middle, let's say you got 200 pounds here pushing up, your shock is going to see double that because it's, say, I don't know, 6 inches, 12 inches, whatever it might be, if that's in the middle of that control arm. So what I did on this, I lowered it. As you can see, that's the factory shock location. I moved it out, which lowered the four-wheeler. But it also stiffened the front suspension. That's because of the geometry, the pivot point from there to there versus there to there changed. Well, hold on, let me repeat that. From there to there, there to there, there to there, whatever. Because of moving the mounting point out, it makes the effective force onto this shock. So it stiffened, in my case, it stiffened the front suspension, which this is set up for flat track or TT racing. So stiffening it up a little bit, that I'm fine with that. And the rear suspension, let's just do a little swing by. I changed the mounting point of the linkage, which is how I did that. And that was all to lower, and it actually stiffened the suspension, but I also lost travel. But this is where I think it might help with Finnegan's car, Blasphemy. If he was to actually do this, move the shock mount point farther out, and get a longer travel shock, it might actually help with control. And the reason why I think that is because, say you have an inch of travel here, it's half of that at the shock if it's mounted in the middle. But if you have an inch of travel at the wheel and your shock is way out, now you're almost 3/4 of an inch. Well, what the shock is doing is when you wheelie up, full droop, you want the shock to control the nose of the car as it comes down. And you don't want to hit the bump stop. Bump stop is a very weird situation and you hit very hard. I don't have a bump stop here. It's actually internal to the shock, but whatever. His was mounted way inside, and that was actually bent the A-arm. What I seen in the video was mounted it up on the upper control arm, so now it's hitting out there, but it's out a little farther, so that should help. Shouldn't bend anything. The farther out you can have, the less bending force you would have on something. But I'm thinking if you can get your shock farther out, it would travel the shock farther, which meaning internally your hydraulic pressure, your oil pressure, whatever you want to call it, would actually decrease. And why I'm thinking that is because your valving is essentially closing off a port, a hole. And you have oil that's traveling from one side of the piston to the other. So when your shock is coming down, it's trying to shoot that oil through a little tiny orifice. And your adjustment is increasing or decreasing the diameter of that orifice. So if the shock is here, you're trying to control the car coming down, it would be more pressure when it's narrower internally to the shock, which could break the valving, could break the piston off the shaft. With a shock compression, I don't think you can break the piston, but rebound you can. So I'm still leaning towards, if you move that shock farther out, longer travel, softer spring, you'd actually reduce the number of clicks in for your adjustment because the shock would travel more for the same amount of wheel travel. So if that makes sense, I hope it makes sense. I'm gonna edit this video and realize that I might not know what I'm talking about, but I've thought about it a little bit and I kind of might. I was thinking, let's do some numbers, but I don't know how to easily do that on a piece of cardboard. But that's information, knowledge. I wouldn't call it knowledge, but when I was playing with the cantilever on the rotary car, cantilever rear suspension, I was playing with, I had a given shock spring rate and the shock travel. So I played with pivot points and stuff going to the rear axle to get a known weight, which put the car on scales. You know how much is on the ground from that tire to get me to my ride height. So that's where this geometry, my thought process is coming in. But of course, I'm open to comments. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't care. I did this on cheap, still factory shocks. If I was to do this correctly, I would do longer travel shocks and softer springs. And I believe any motocross stuff is done that way. I'm definitely a little big for racing the four-wheelers around, and I was just doing it for fun, so that's why that's still factory. But it kind of works. I do have a sway bar on it. But I guess the half fun stuff and less information or info learning stuff, I got Supercharger. Superchargers make things fun. It doesn't make Supercharger sounds. I don't have a boost gauge on it yet, so I don't know if it's actually making boost. I have the pulley. That pulley is it's actually a fan pulley off from the International, from that motor. It was a spare motor. That is still factory. I did break the bolt, which, oops. It is an LS truck belt tensioner, which I did find. I don't know if it's rusty. I don't know if it's sticking. When it runs, it kind of works its way, cams down, and it really tightens the belt. So it really works. Intake manifolds all welded together. I need to get rid of, I have this wrapped up because that's the oil injection lines. I'm going to remove the oil injection pump and pre-mix the car. for when this is actually done. That is 3-inch exhaust pipe. It's 290s, and then I made a nice little flare to go from the round to the square underneath carburetor. Again, that's carburetor off the Chevelle, so no touch, can't do anything with it. I need to do throttle cable, which is this line here, somehow to this side of the carburetor. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to keep the carburetor this direction so it pulls that way for throttle, or I can spin it around and actually use the bottom to pull when it's the other way, and then this could actually be on the firewall side. It does fit really nicely with the fuel rail or the fuel lines on it. I just threw the air cleaner over top just to see what it'd look like, but it's kind of cool. I don't have the hood cut up for it just because not 100% on anything yet. I do have my high idle line that I don't know if I'll keep. It is, I don't know, cold-blooded, if you want to call it that. It needs a lot of fuel. So it's definitely a learning curve on starting this now. Even just after the street port, it's different on starting. But I'll see if I can get it fired up. It's still a little bit warm, so maybe. I did start it with starting fluid last time. Get rid of that. Starter's still giving fits, which kind of sucks because I need a new starter again. Need a starter. Doesn't want to idle yet. I don't know if it needs more fuel or what it actually truly needs. I do need to check. I think this inlet side is pretty good for any vacuum leaks, but down, that aluminum was hard to weld. Very thick. I think it's 1/2 inch on the engine side, almost 3/4 inch here underneath Supercharger. So getting all that TIG welded together was difficult. Like I said, I'm going to tear it back apart just to check things. I do not have vacuum advance hooked up, so the timing is really retarded, which would help it run better. But the exhaust is getting really hot because the timing's so retarded. Like I said, get rid of that oil injection pump, and we got supercharged 12A, carbureted 12A. I know, fuel injection would be the way to go, but carburetor. So the Alice, it's cute. Oh, I made wheels for it, for the motor deck, because the other ones were bad. And I made a step for the back. The wife likes it, so that's a win. I'll always get the wife to like it. So, thanks for watching. Like I said, this front suspension stuff, I want to spark some interest and some conversation, I guess, about it. But we'll see if I can get Finnegan to talk. I don't know. Thanks for watching.